Afraid of wage garnishments. Afraid of wage garnishments. That is the subject matter for today. Welcome to the Blind Intelligence Show. I'm your host, Foresight. This is where the rules and the rights and responsibilities put you back in control. And in control you must be to understanding about these wage garnishments. But first, let me put out the disclaimer. This is not legal advice. I do not offer legal advice. If you would like legal advice, I suggest you find yourself a competent professional. Attorney, magistrate, whatever you want to call it, a lawyer, and by all means, please be advised. What I'm about to say here is strictly for education, entertainment purposes, education, entertainment, and informational purposes only. If you would like, and the views and opinions of me, the host, does not reflect the views and opinions of any platform that hosts Blind Intelligence. Now, having said that, forgive me, I'm a little anxious today. Are you afraid of wage garnishments? Is that troubling you? Good. Today, I want to talk about what troubles you, and that's being afraid of wage garnishments. You know, you're afraid of wage garnishments, and because you know you owe this debt. You know you owe this debt, so don't play. You know you owe it, but I'm gonna tell you straight up and down, because I have my own story to tell. You know, because it happened to me. My wages was garnished when I was working a 9 to 5. And one thing that I did discover about wage garnishments is that they cannot garnish your wages until they get a court order. Excuse me for a minute. I'll be right back. Check. I have to go blow my nose. But back to what I was saying. It happened to me. And the one thing that the one thing I did find out about wage garnishments is that wage garnishments is they cannot be issued unless there's a judgment. And the judgment is that you did not show up for court. You went into dishonor and you didn't show up for court. So now they're garnishing your wages. You know, now let me say this. Let me tell you what happened to me. And this was happening to many of you. So you need to keep your eyes and ears and stay tuned for this, because this is important. Wage garnishments cannot be. No creditor, no debt collector, no debt junk buyer can garnish your wages unless they got a judgment on you. I'm gonna be clear, and you must understand that. That's an absolute must. I will reiterate that more and more as time goes on. So you need not to be afraid of that. What you should be doing is you should be addressing the letters that come in the mail. Yeah. just write them a letter. Tell them cease and desist. If they cannot validate the debt, tell them cease and desist. They have to cease and desist until they validate that debt. If it's a debt collector, collecting on the debt, collecting the debt on behalf of the creditor, they got to send you a copy. You're going to ask for a lot of different things. They have to validate. They have to validate that assignment. That's number one. You know, you owe the debt. Do they own the debt? That's the same thing with the junk buyer is another ball game. They want you to pay them middling funding, LV&V, portfolio recovery. Those are some of the debt junk buyers that are out there. There's a lot more, and a lot of them are attorneys. A lot of them are attorneys. And don't get scared because an attorney doesn't send you a letter. Somebody, attorney at law. Come on, man. Man, look, let me tell you something. If you know the law, if you know what your rights are, you ain't got nothing to worry about. I'm just going to keep it a buck here. If you know what your rights are, you ain't got nothing to worry about. The only ones that need to be worried is them. They're the only ones that needs to be worried, because here's the deal. If you know the law, then you know when they're breaking it. You know when they're breaking the law. You have to understand that Congress created consumer law, the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, the Fair Credit Reporting Act, TILA. All that goes into the favor of the consumer, which is you. Y-O-U. You got to understand that. You have to understand that. That's what's going on. That's what's going on. And if you don't know how to use the consumer laws, and you're gonna throw your hands up. See, attorneys, they try to scare you. You can't let them scare you and punk you out. Look, you're bigger than that. Like I said, the laws is written for you. You can't let them be afraid. You can't let them put you on any fear tactics. Because let me tell you something. They know that you're afraid. They know you're afraid. I had a friend went to court because of this mess. Garnished his wages. Well, yeah, they wound up garnishing his wages because it wasn't because it's because he didn't meet to the terms of the agreements. But it wasn't just because of that. He didn't know how to fight. He was going to court. They was taking him, they subpoenaed him to come to court. If he would have just took just 2 hours with me, he wouldn't have lost his case. He would have not lost his case. Under the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, anybody that's collecting a debt on behalf of a debt collector, I don't care if it's a debt junk buyer or if it's a debt collector, they have to validate the debt. And you must know that as a consumer. You must know this as a consumer. They have to validate that debt under 15 USC 1692G. That's under validation. You need to go read that. Pull it up on your phone. Put it into your laptop, your tablet, whatever device you're using. Pull up 15 USC 1692G and read that information, because that applies to them. You assert your rights when you quote that law to them. You're just asserting your rights, and don't be afraid. Those are not magic words. That's the law that they have to abide by. Point blank. So don't get caught up in this crap with these stinking attorneys that comes on the YouTubes and other platforms talking about magic words. These are not magic words. That's the law. You use it or you don't. Because the judge gonna use it. Before the judge hit the gavel, he gonna use the law. He gonna use the law. He's gonna tell you the facts is on the moon, because he's gonna tell you what the law is. He's not down for fact finding. That's what your that's what the jury's for. The jury's for fact finding. He's gonna come straight for the law. And if you come in with the law, you can't lose. You can't lose. If they didn't validate that debt, they ain't got no business. You ain't got no business in court. You ain't got no business in court. Why are we in court? And you didn't validate the debt. You bringing this man in court and you didn't validate this debt, you in violation yourself. Always do a counter. Always do a counter. Whenever you go to court on a debt collection lawsuit and they hadn't validated that debt, let me tell you something. You always do a counter. When they send you a subpoena, put it in your answer. They didn't validate the debt, and I'm filing for a counterclaim. Cross-claim in some states is all the same. And I'm telling you, see, when you do that, guess what? They gonna bow down. They don't want that problem, because they know they gonna know they in the wrong. Now let me say this. Let me say this before I go into my story. They gonna send an attorney in there. The debt collector is going to send an attorney in there. And the attorney don't have first-hand knowledge on anything. And don't let them present an affidavit. You need to object to everything that attorney say. Objection, Your Honor, hearsay. Objection, Your Honor, hearsay, because it is hearsay. Because here's the deal. I can't rebut it. I can't rebut an affidavit. I have a right to face. I have the right to face my accuser, point blank. I'm telling you facts. I ain't telling you no crap. I'm not telling you no crap. They don't follow the law. I'm telling you. I'm not saying all of them, but a lot of them, they don't follow the law. Case in point. Brings me to my case. In my instance, I talk about this all the time. I had debts out the yin yang. I didn't know what to do. I was in your shoes. I was like, got phone calls, folks calling me all times at night, man. I'm like, golly, wish they leave me alone. Turn your phone on, you got messages, turn your phone on, keep it on, they're calling you back. I know that's happening to you because it happened to me, so you can't tell me it ain't. Man, I didn't know about cease and desist. I didn't know about none of that. I didn't know about nothing. So, but anyway, so one Friday, they give me my check stub, and I'm looking on there, and they said it was wage garnishment. I said wage garnishment, and I'm looking, I'm like, oh no. So I called the company. They said, yeah, you got a wage garnishment for, I think it was like, I don't know, I can't think, I think it was like 25%, something like that. And I was like, oh my goodness. And I didn't know what to do. But let me tell you this. That's the reason why I shut up and started paying attention and started listening and started reading. That's what really made me start really reading. So, and I started doing some research. Lo and behold, they didn't send the sheriff out to my house. I never got a subpoena to come to court. So what was that? That was an incorrect serve. That was incorrect. They didn't serve me correctly. I did not get served. They didn't put it in my mail, nothing. I didn't get anything. They just told me to come to court. So I wrote a letter to the court and asked the court, say, hey, look, listen, can you please set up me another court date so I can come to court so I can answer this because I was not served. They set me up another court date. And I went into court. Took off for work and I went to court. But the debt collector didn't show up. The debt collector did not show up. And I said, I asked the judge, I said, can you please dismiss this case? You know, I said, because number one, I wasn't served. They said, hey, we see that. And it was over with. Case dismissed. If you go in there with your ducks in a row, it's going to work in your favor. Now, I can't tell you anything about credit reports and, you know, give you guarantees on credit reports and stuff like that. But I can guarantee you this: if you go into court and your ducks is in a row, the judge gonna hit the gavel on them. The gavel gonna come down in your favor. They gonna hit the gavel on them. I'm telling you, this was happening. So don't be afraid of garnishments. You have to know what that means. You have to know what that means. And until you understand, and the way you understand what that means is you got to start doing a lot more reading and a lot more listening. If you start reading and listening and reading the law and understanding, when you turn that box on the YouTube or TikTok or Facebook or whatever platform that you use, you on the gram, whatever you want to do, when you turn it on and you go into something like that, if you done did your due diligence and you read, you're gonna know if these folks are telling you a lie or they're telling you the truth. And believe me when I tell you this, I'm going to always keep it a buck with you. You know what I'm saying? Because I want you to get this correctly. You got children. You got children to feed. You got a household to run. Whether you're paying a mortgage or you're paying rent, you're paying light bill, gas bill, water bill, whatever bills you're paying, phone bill, car note, whatever. You got that. You ain't got to worry about. You don't need to be worrying with this. You don't need nobody taking 15 to 25% out your check. You know what I'm saying? I understand you owe the debt. Well, let's get some negotiation going. If you owe the debt, and it's past 180 days, they're gonna charge it off. If you can call up that creditor and make a deal with them, make a deal. If you owe $1,000 and you can scrape up together $500, do it. They'll take it. But let me say this. Let me say this before I go. You must MUST get it in writing. Because if you don't get it in writing, it never happened. Hey, I'm your host, Foresight. You know what it is? It's the Blind Intelligence Show. Leave me a comment, and we'll get at you later. Peace.